Lord took her and stuff like that. And I said, oh, so you're saying Jesus is a murderer? Nobody wanted to hear that.
No, they didn't want to mess with you with that.
They backed up off of that. What the bottom line was, I never said my mother died. I always say she was murdered. And that's because she was. My daddy died.
Yes.
My 3 sisters, they died. My brother, he died. My brother and sister-in-law, they died. My husband, they died.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
That's right.
My mother was murdered.
Hello, this is Reverend Paul Jakes, and I'm welcoming you to New Tabernacle of Faith Baptist Church and the Love in Action program tonight. We have with us a very special person whom I have really got to know. I've had an opportunity to read a couple of her books, and tonight she's our special guest, Reverend Wanda Jenkins. We are glad to have her because she's sharing with us very personal information about a loss that actually has given her over time a purpose in life and a mission to help others. Later on, we also are looking forward to more information from the Attorney General's office in regards to how families can be helped and supported during this season. It's never easy sharing a story about grief and your pain, but we hope that we will have a family, if they're able to come on camera, to share some of their story as well. Thank you for being with us, and we welcome you to Love in Action. Ladies and gentlemen, again, welcome to New Tabernacle of Faith Baptist Church, located 531 North Kedzie. I'm Pastor Paul Jakes, and the show is Love in Action. I'm glad to have as my very special guest on today, Reverend Wanda Jenkins, and she is a person that you should know. She was the founder of Grief Assistance Program and Bereavement Center, providing services to survivors of homicide victims. Her personal and professional experience in homicidal loss spans over 43 years, and she is a survivor, co-victim survivor. All right, and Reverend Wanda Jenkins just recently experienced a loss of her husband, and she is a survivor. Again, she was indeed married and was married for over 30 years. She's a mother, and are you a grandmother?
Absolutely.
A grandmother too?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I'm glad to have you. And we got a chance to meet when my mother was transitioning with the VITAS program over at Mercy, where Mercy Hospital is. And she and the other chaplains provided beautiful, wonderful care for my mother, my family, myself, and I am most appreciative. Welcome to Love in Action.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, glad to have you. Reverend Wanda, you're the bereavement manager of VITAS, and you're also the assistant pastor of Bethel AME Church in the south suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
And what suburb is it?
I grew up in Robbins, Illinois.
Robbins?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm the pastor's assistant. They don't call you the assistant pastor. I'm
Yes.
the pastoral assistant.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit, and I have a few questions that I'd like to ask you. Does one ever overcome a homicidal loss?
It's a good question. I don't believe in the concept of overcoming. Because what do you overcome? The issue is that someone you love was a victim of homicide. Someone you love, life was taken from them. And when you love someone, you don't overcome loving them. And you don't even overcome homicide because it's not something you did. It's something that was done to someone that you love.
Yes.
But what you actually have to do, it's like going through a forest. You have to go through it.
Yes, yes.
You can't go under it, around it, over it. You have to go through it. You have to feel the thickets. You have to experience the pain, and so that you can actually re-embrace the love you have for the person who died. And that's true whether you lose someone to homicide or a natural death. You have to go through that jungle or that journey called grief. You don't escape it.
Yes. You know, February 28th was my day that my dad passed. And so that just passed, and I dealt with that all on February 28th. I just dealt with that. And so it's a process when you're going through. Your mom, February the 12th, 1972. Tell us about Juanita, and who was Juanita?
Well, Juanita was a nurse at what you now call Northwestern Memorial Hospital, the Western Pavilion. She was an only child, as was my dad, an only child. And they had 9 of us, and that's why the first book was called Just Us, because we didn't have any cousins, aunts, uncles, things like that, because they were both only children. And so what they ended up doing was raising 9 only children. You know, because what do only children do? 9 only children. In other words, all of us act like only children.
Yes. Did you become kind of a surrogate mother to your sisters and brothers?
Well, I had done that all my life. When people have 9 babies, the oldest child ends up helping to take care of everybody anyway. Right. That's just real. Certainly. But I don't care what a person does in life. There's no preparation for losing someone to homicide. Yes. There really isn't. And so that was 46 years ago. 46 years ago.
46 years ago.
And she was the kind of person that I always used to laugh sometimes. They actually drove me crazy, both of my parents, because there was just every time I looked up, it looked like somebody was in our house, and it was some extra children around.
Yeah, sure.
And I was kind of like, you have 9 children, isn't that enough? You know, I mean, really. Yeah. And honestly, I think that's partially what led to her murder, helping a relative out that my dad wanted her to help out, who came from another state, who really hung out with some really not nice gang-banging people. And I think that that really is what caused her murder. It's an unsolved murder, but with some information that was given to us about this person. And, you know, it doesn't really matter to me because my mother was dead, so I really could care less about what happened to that person. I did forgive them, but it doesn't change anything.
Yes. It
doesn't do the thing that every person who's ever lost anybody wants, and that's to have them back.
Let's go to that night.
Oh.
Tilly. Who is Tilly?
Tilly is a Fuller Rizet, my sister.
That's your sister. So at 12, at least 12:01.
Sometime before 12 o'clock, she heard a car door slam, or what she thought was a car door slam, and then she heard my mother say, "Call the police, I'm the one that shot." She didn't realize it was shot. She thought a car had backfired. And when she looked out, my mom was walking up the stairs holding her neck. And in her white nurse's uniform, and her coat and uniform was stained with blood. And she got in the house, and as she got in the house, she just kind of sat down on the floor in front of her white conventional couch. And she said, "I told you to call the police," and they had. And then she started to gag, and my sister, who was 11 at the time, grabbed a spoon and to keep her from swallowing her tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And then the police got there, and back then they didn't wait on 911. They put her in the back of the paddy wagon to take her around to St. Bernard's Hospital, which was just less than a mile down the street. This was in Inglewood, and but in the ambulance.
It's a trauma center now.
Yeah, and the ambulance, Aquila said she could tell that Mama's pulse was real thready and her breathing was real shallow. And when they got her there, they worked on her for a long time, but she was dead. She was already dead. And she had mouthed some stuff and said some things, but it's just too garbled for it to really be understood. At that time, I actually graduated from the same nursing school my mother graduated from. And I was working as a charge nurse in a nursing home in Dixmoor, because I lived in Harvey, on my own at that time. And about 3 in the morning, my sister came and knocked on the door. And I remember looking at her saying, that would be important.
But there was a phone call before that.
No,
right?
no phone call. No, what happened is I had a television, and it would go in and out, and I heard a news report. And it was describing this nurse who had been shot and killed and died at the hospital. And I thought I heard my mother's name, and I thought, nah, that can't be true. That wasn't her. And because it was like 2:30 in the morning, so I figured she should have been home, And then when I saw Aquila standing outside the door, I said to myself, now, who can I accept is dead? My dad, my mom, my brothers and sisters. And that's what went through my head. And then Aquila told me Mama's dead, and I just kind of went, I said, so what happened?
You thought it was a stroke at
or a
first?
heart attack, because she had aortic stenosis, which is narrowing of the aorta, and she had that from birth. She really wasn't supposed to live to be 6 months old, and she's the only of my grandmother's children who survived to live to be an adult. And so Aquila said, no, she was shot. And I said, what do you mean? She was murdered? Is that what you're trying to tell me? And she said, yeah. I said, okay. And so then I just, I went in the bathroom, I closed the door, I knelt down in front of the toilet, and I just prayed. And what I really said was, God, this is bigger than me, help me.
Yes.
That's what I said. This is bigger than me, help me. Because I knew it was just big. I was prepared for my parents to die because of the way they raised us. But I wasn't prepared for anyone to get murdered.
That's it. So how has it changed your life now?
The murder?
Yeah, the murder and the steps from that point.
The first 7 years, I have to honestly say, I blanked it out. I pushed it in the back of my mind to help my dad raise my siblings. I worked as a nurse and just kind of dealt with it the way this church said you should deal with it. I put it in prayer and said I would forgive, and just went on and did what I had to do and gained 200 pounds. That's what I did.
Oh, I see.
So I was a nice little size 12, but I gained 200 pounds. Because I stopped going out, I stopped doing things I was doing, and just went to work, came home, went to church. You eat a lot in church. And then once my youngest sibling was 16, I decided to go back to school. And when I got accepted at college, I was walking past a mirror one day, and I looked and I thought, who is that? And I realized it was me. Who was the fat lady? The fat lady was me. Anyway, I went to school, and I went to a Christian college, and I lived on the Christian college. Even though I was 26, I gave up everything I had, and I lived in college because that's what I felt the Lord was leading me to do. And it was, because I really experienced a great deal of spiritual transformation during that time. And I went to see a psychologist. I was engaged, and this guy and I broke up 30 days. No. We broke up 2 days before the wedding. Because I'd always told God, if it's not right, I will walk God. And I had walked 3 times before, but not that close. But I had went to a family reunion with him,
Yeah.
And when I went to this family reunion, what I saw at that reunion, I knew I did not want to live with. Although he wasn't from the church too, but I saw what I saw at that family reunion. I said, "Oh no!" I went and saw Reverend Johnson, Lavelle Johnson in Wisconsin, and I went to church that Sunday. And I was sitting in his office. I said, "I don't think I should do this." I said, because I saw some things this weekend I don't like. And he told me, "Wanda, if that's what you need to do, that's what you do." I said, "This is Sunday." I said, "But the wedding is next Sunday." He said, "Don't matter." And so I had called my mentor, Reverend James, and I told her, I said, "Reverend James, I don't think you're going to be doing a wedding." I said, because I can't do this.
Yeah.
So when we came back, his brothers had been teasing him about marrying a woman preacher and all that kind of stuff. And so he decided to show out for them and said, "Well, why don't we postpone the wedding?" I said, "Okay." I said, "Why don't we go down to the church and talk in private?" So we went down. I said, "It's not postponed, it's canceled. There's no turning back with this." I said, "Because you clearly know, and I clearly know that we're not suited." And I said, "And I promised God that if I got to the altar and I knew that it wasn't right, I'd turn around. And so this is 2 days from the altar, I'm turning around." Now that didn't mean I wasn't hurt. It didn't mean that I didn't feel what I felt. What it meant was I made a commitment to God. Marriage is important to me. It was important to me then. And that it was a covenant relationship, and I wasn't willing to enter into anything, especially advisedly, knowing that it wasn't okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what it did is I mourned that, and when I began to mourn that, what happened was I was tender enough that everything with my mother's murder came flying back in my face.
Okay.
So for about 6 months, I went to the church every day. And when I say every day, I mean every day. And I would just pray in silence and solitude and just spend time before God. And then I began to see this Jewish psychologist. And he asked me, he said, "You had a recent loss?" And I talked about the wedding. He said, "No, have you had a recent death loss?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, has anyone in your family died?" I said, "Well, yes." And so I told him, and he said, "Well, what did you do when your mother died?" I said, "I didn't have time to do anything. I had to take care of my siblings." He said, "That's the issue." And so then, and literally, because I was a student, he only charged me $5 a session. And what he said was, when you begin to help others, give back, just like I'm giving to you. And I said, "I'll do that." So that's when that 6 months that I spent in solitude and silence and spending time alone is when the Lord did a creative thing in my life and truly healed me. But when I came out of it, I realized I was only 2 weeks from graduation. I was not ready for graduation. So
Yeah.
I started getting things together. And then my advisor said, "Come on to my office, let's talk." Because she's a minister. She said, "You got through it, didn't you?" I said, "Yes." All my teachers knew that I was working through something. And in a Christian environment like it was, they were very caring and very loving. And I said, "Yes." She said, "You want to talk about it?" So with her, I debriefed
Sure.
what I had actually gone through. It was one of the most creative times in my life. But see, all those years I was at school, I was in Bible studies and prayer meetings, and I had this close-knit group of black students on a white campus, and we prayed together, kept each other accountable. And all that time, God was like pouring tenderizer on my heart.
Yeah.
And just doing a wonderful work in my life of transformation. So when I got ready for graduation, I was walking across the knoll, and looked like I could see everybody that was hurting, and I knew that I wasn't going to teach English because I was an English major.
Mm-hmm.
I did my student teaching at Bolingbrook in the English department, but I knew I wasn't going to teach English.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that, like I told my mom when I was a little girl, I wanted to help hurting people.
So from that, you turn your pain into power?
I don't think I turned my pain into power at all. I
Okay.
think God turned my heart to Him and gave me a spirit of compassion that allowed me to reach out to hurting people and say, "It hurts. It's okay to say it hurts. And how you're going to get through it is I'm going to walk with you on the journey." And I think the power of the Holy Spirit gave me the compassion and love of God.
Yes.
When you talk about love and action, that's what it's not any power in me. There's no power in me except the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And He really does the work. And what amazes me is how He'll put me in a room or in a situation with people who are hurting because of any kind of loss, but especially homicidal loss. and he just does a miraculous work.
You know, you've done, at least I've read 2 of your books, but you have more books. Remember how many books?
Well, I wrote, for my company, I've written about 9 books on mother loss for adults, mother loss for girls, spousal loss, adult parental loss, support groups,
right.
and then I wrote that program on developing a grief camp for children.
I like that, yeah.
And because I'm a teacher,
Yes.
I'm a teacher, and the 2 most important things I do is teach and companion people through their loss. I'm not here to tell people what they should feel or how they should feel or if it's right or wrong, because there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
Right.
And my goal is to help people to grieve and mourn healthy and holy.
Aborted grief. Explain that, because it sounds like to me that the police were constantly coming to your door, detectives asking questions over and over again, and then you would see it on television again, and it would bring it back up again.
Well, you have a couple of kinds of what can lead to complicated mourning, and one of them is aborted grief, and that really means that your grief is cut off. Period. You become so enveloped, and that's what a lot of people do who lose a loved one. They become so enveloped in the criminal justice system. They become so enveloped in the violence prevention movement that they pour all their energies into that, but they don't take care of their heart. They don't take care of the place that really counts the most, and that's their heart. Because actually it makes the media, it makes news for the media, and it makes the city and other people feel okay. Because they're doing something, and it makes a difference. But what happens is that people who lost someone to murder are vulnerable, and they're hurting, and they're confused and betrayed by humanity. And that's what needs to be addressed first. Not all that other stuff, because then what happens is that people become depressed and suicidal when they don't have to be, when they don't have to go through that. So it's a hard place to be without the support, adequate support.
Certainly.
You can get compensation, crime victims compensation, you can get all of the stuff, but that does not take care of the heart.
Yes.
And justice has a way of circumventing. So aborted grief just simply cuts off grief.
Okay. Then let me then ask this question. When did you then come back to it? I mean, because you aborted it, but it
when I went to the psychologist.
And that's when you were able to,
I went through that 6 months of private time alone with God.
That almost marriage.
It was just a catalyst, I guess, to opening the door. The guy and I are friends. We don't see each other because he's from, I don't even know where he is. It's been so long,
Yeah.
But I can tell you this, there was a period of time when I saw him and we had a really good conversation. And by then I had gotten married and I think he was married. And but the difference was I was happy and he wasn't. And we talked about that time. And I actually honestly thanked him for just caring for me the way he did and how he treated me so the lady that I was. And for having the courage not to marry when he really wasn't ready for it.
Yes.
And I wasn't the right person for him. And I'm glad that we made the decision we did, because you don't have to go around hating people because something was not the right time or the right season.
That's true.
But it did open up a gateway for me to really pay close attention to my life. So basically, and see, I had made a commitment to God. He was the first person I had dated in 8 years. I wasn't dating. I just wasn't out there. My focus was on Jesus and getting my education. That was it.
Certainly.
And even when I went to seminary and met my husband, my focus was still on Jesus. He was just smooth. but But
what was your husband's name?
Samuel.
Samuel.
Mm-hmm.
Samuel.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I got a chance to meet him.
Yeah, you did.
Before he passed on.
Before he got sick.
Great man. Yeah, a lot of personality.
Very much so.
Yeah, very educated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that he got you flowers every day?
No,
or every week?
I got flowers, I'll tell you, no less than once a month, and usually 2 or 3 times a month. And towards the end, every Sunday or Saturday, he would go and buy me roses every Saturday and Sunday. One of those days. And even the day he died, after he had been pronounced and everything, my son happened to go out to the car. My roses for that day were in the car because we were going to go out to dinner. And so, bottom line is that what he did was he treated me like a lady. He taught me how to be a lady, and he taught me how to be a wife and a mother, and he honored that part of me, and he valued that part of me, which taught me how to value myself even better. And I'm sure, I know from reading this journal, I did the same for him as a man.
Absolutely.
That's great. And he said one day, nobody could ever take care of me like you. And in his journal, he wrote that I was a Proverbs 31 woman. And so that's, I love you a million times over. I'll never forget it.
Mm-hmm.
But life goes on.
Life goes on. I got a couple of questions. I want to talk about social isolation. And did you feel socially isolated at some point?
In my mother's loss, in my mother's death, because see, homicide is something, it was like a piranha in the scheme of death, like it was with AIDS. If people didn't know what to do, what do you say to somebody who's lost someone to homicide? How do you comfort someone who's lost someone to homicide? And especially if you've never been there, and then if you're confused by the fact I haven't been there, you don't know what to do, what do you say to them? And so what people don't do, they don't say anything to you, or they say things like, oh, I remember listening to people saying, oh, your mom passed away. I thought, she didn't pass away, she was taken away. And see, and I was very vocal. I didn't let people tell me that. And I remember they were sitting there and said, oh, it was Juanita's time to go. And the Lord took her and stuff like that. And I said, oh, so you're saying Jesus is a murderer? Nobody wanted to hear that.
No, they didn't want to mess with you with that.
They backed up off of that. What the bottom line was, I never said my mother died. I always say she was murdered. And that's because she was. My daddy died.
Yes.
My 3 sisters, they died. My brother, he died. My brother and sister-in-law, they died. My husband, they died. Okay?
That's right.
My mother was murdered. Plain and simple as that. Bottom line, that's 9 people. I miss them all. I love them all. But there's a definite difference between how Juanita died and the rest of them.
Yes. Well, can we deal with some myths now?
Oh, yeah.
94%, according to your statistics, indicate that black on black violence happens with black on black, and 88% white on white. So it's not racial.
No, those are national statistics. They're not mine. Those are the ones I went and looked at, the Center for Disease Control. Homicide has been a national epidemic for a long time. And the crime tends to be between people who know each other or people of the same race, because people don't tend to come out of their neighborhoods that much to go murder somebody that's not like them. I mean, when you hear about these crimes where people have murdered somebody not like them, it's usually something really extraordinary. But most people are killed by somebody they know. Even if it's a mere acquaintance, it's by somebody you know. Murders happen 2 ways. It's either a blitz attack or it's a planned attack. And by a blitz attack, it's like what happened in that school. Somebody came up there and just began shooting up. No preparation for that. Or it's a confidence attack. And by confidence, you know the person, they reeled you in, and then they killed you.
I felt that. I don't know if you did out there, but
Yeah. So you
because
trusted them.
yeah, right.
It's the same way a rape happens.
Right.
You out with somebody you think is really safe, and you don't have no idea that this person would would rape you. It's the same way with murder. You have no idea. There's nothing about this person that would tell you that they would kill you, but they did.
Yeah. This is an interesting season because even Me Too is violation, and people are being misused and abused left and right, and it takes a lot to be able to overcome. I've been looking at the
work through.
Yeah, work through.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
you don't overcome.
You know, as black folks, we use I'll overcome. You know, but
have we overcome slavery?
No, we haven't.
All right,
no, we haven't. So whites kill whites, blacks kill black,
Asians kill Asians.
Right. Yeah. So it's domestic violence that happens, and maybe that might be the foundation in Chicago of what is going on, the overwhelming numbers of problems that's happening because they're attacking it from.
I mean, guess what? If you kill somebody that looks like you, who are you killing?
You're killing yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I'm talking about.
Well,
but the myth, a lot of people, some of the myths are have to do with that, or the myths that it's true in domestic violence and homes and things that husbands tend to kill wives more than wives kill husbands, but wives do kill husbands. Don't fool yourself.
They do?
Oh yeah, I worked in the morgue. When I worked in that morgue, I had a mother and a daughter-in-law come in.
Yeah.
And I always would ask, do you know who murdered this person? And they said, oh yeah, we know. I said, well, who was it? The lady said, me. And the mama said he was a so-and-so and he deserved it. And I was just like, well, I thought I'll never ask that question again. Yeah. Because I was at that point, I was kind of like, how am I going to help this woman? Mm-hmm. But the Holy Ghost had an answer,
Thank God.
And I was able to help both of them.
Yeah.
But
that's so interesting because I've dealt with a lot of families as well.
Yeah, women
and I won't say the particular case, but it was hard for the mother to not put a hit on the man that killed her daughter. Mm-hmm. And I was just constantly saying, don't do it.
That's not acceptable. One murder doesn't take care of another murder. It's in the first place, when we kill somebody, we might as well have killed ourselves, because there's two things you can't give back. You can't give back the innocence of life, and you can't give back the innocence of virginity. If you take those two things, you take everything.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Maya Angelou talking about when her virginity was taken,
mm-hmm.
that she went into herself. She told her uncles and the men of the family about this boyfriend mm-hmm. of her mother that took advantage of her. Mm-hmm. And then she looked around and the man was gone, never to be seen again. Mm-hmm. And she just saw her uncles and stuff sitting around the table eating, and she looked at them and she said, oh, what have I done? And she went silent for a whole year.
Yeah.
And what she did is she just started writing, and that developed the artist that she became.
And that's what happens with a lot of people who are willing to work through their grief and their mourning, is they begin to identify resources, rich resources within their soul, things that they may never have tapped into, and discoveries about themselves that they have to give back to the world and to other people. They become artists, they become musicians, they do a lot of things. If you think about some of the musicians and people in life today, their history is rich with things like this. Mm-hmm. And yet, from that, a creativity was born.
Mm-hmm. We talked about creativity. I think that's great, but there's shock. Shock neutralizes one, and it takes away the pain for a while.
Yeah, it's like getting anesthesia. It's God's way of giving you anesthesia. It deadens everything long enough for you to accomplish a major social event in your life, a funeral. And that's true regardless of how a person dies. Because if you really think about the nature of putting together a funeral or a memorial service, it takes a whole lot of energy. And it takes a whole lot of planning, and you have to do it in short order. Mm-hmm. And a lot of hosting people, greeting people. And so during a time in your life when you're at your most, when you're in your valley experience, the low place, mm-hmm. you're called to go into a high place mm-hmm. and do something extraordinary, as putting your loved one away.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about these different stages, because what stages do one go through when they have lost a loved one?
Well, okay, there are two things. First, there's what you call the Kubler-Ross stages of grief, mm-hmm. which really had to do with dying people and how they face their end of life. And that's shock, denial, mm-hmm. anger, mm-hmm. guilt, and acceptance. Mm-hmm. Now, where that ends with a dying person, it begins with a person who has to face the loss of a loved one. They begin at acceptance. And there are four tasks of mourning that they have to do according to, now I won't remember right now, but anyway, I have a book called Grief Counseling and Grief Therapy. And in that book it talks about William Wharton. He's a PhD psychiatrist who is also a thanatologist, a death educator and counselor. And he said there are four things that every person has to do regardless of the nature of their loss. So if you have a divorce, if you have a relocation, you fail in school, you lose your job, you lose someone to death, you have to do these four things. And the first thing you have to do is accept the reality of the loss and that it is permanent. You're never going to go back. You're never going to go back, no matter what. Second, you have to be willing, and this is an umbilical cord with twins. First is acceptance. The other part is you have to experience the pain. You can't reign in denial. You have to embrace it. You have to allow yourself to feel what you feel. Because the truth is that if you block those bad feelings, you imprison your opportunity to have good feelings. Because they reside in the same place, in the heart. The third task of mourning mm-hmm. is to adjust to an environment where your loved one is not going to return. Mm-hmm. And the final task are so-called.
I know about that.
Of mourning, yeah. Right? They're not coming back, no matter what you think. And see, I'll give you a really good example. Person gets divorced. That person is still living and walking around, and you're seeing them. And so there's always this little tiny hope for a reunion, And then guess what? They get back together and they get married, but guess what? They end up divorced again. Why? Because what was dead was dead. If it's dead, it's dead. And so you have to just deal with it. So the fourth task of mourning is adaptation. Mm-hmm. You adapt to a new life. You begin to build a new life. Mm-hmm. As you have worked through the pain, now you're beginning the journey of reconnection, the journey of reconnection to yourself, to your God, and to humanity. Mm-hmm. I guess how could I say that? I am not at that stage right now as far as my husband's loss is, but let me tell you what I do. I love him.
Yes.
But I pour my loving into the people around me.
I see.
See, so I'm not going to hide in a closet and not love on the people who are right here, right now, to love me. So my grandchildren, my children, my friends, my family, everything I do.
How do you get there?
You make a choice. Okay. Healing is a choice.
Okay.
It doesn't just happen. Every day you have to make a choice. Every morning I cry. And the reason I cry is because every morning my husband and I had devotions and prayer and breakfast, and he would walk me to my car and pray for me before I went to work.
Yes.
Every morning I cry. And then I spend my time with God for an hour and a half, and I can go to work. I'm fine.
Yeah.
But I have to make a choice to do that every day.
Yes.
I have to make the choice to live again every day.
Yes.
It's not going to just happen. It don't just happen. Time does not take care of it.
Yes.
Choice. choice to
Yes,
love again.
that dedication to put those slippers.
Discipline.
As Denzel Washington said, put those house slippers so far under the bed that you have to get on your knees to get them.
Well, see, guess what the reality is?
Mm-hmm.
Everything that belonged to him is gone.
Yes.
Other than some pictures and stuff like that, I gave him away. He is not here. He cannot use them. There's no sense in them sitting around and dry rotting. And so in 2 months, I had help. I got rid of all the things that we're givers. Sam and I were givers. So I gave it so that people could have it.
Yes.
That's what I did.
Yes.
But, everybody can't do it like I did. That don't make it the right, understand this. That doesn't make it the right way to do it.
Sure.
It just happened to work for Wanda Sherrill.
Yeah.
It worked for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And so,
I changed the furniture around
yeah.
in the house,
Well, if Sam came back now, he wouldn't recognize the house. It's not the house that he lived in.
Yes.
It's my house.
Yes. Wow.
Now he'd be glad I do have his picture up in the living room, but it is my house. But
So you trust your emotions?
I trust God
Okay.
with my emotions.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm not afraid of my emotions. I'm not afraid to be real. I learned the lesson. 200 pounds I learned the lesson. So, on this end, because I've been losing weight for a few years, instead of gaining weight, I'm continuing to lose weight. My daughter looked up there, she said, Mom, those pants and that shirt, she said, they're about to fall down. I said, I know. I said, they're going to have to drop, and when they do that, I get the next size down. I've changed 6 sizes in the past 4 years already. And I said, when I put this dress on today, I said, I'm going to have to get this one, give this one up eventually.
It looks good.
Today, it looks good. It didn't always look like this, but today it looks good.
Yes.
But the thing is that healing is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to hurt. You know what? No matter what goes on in my life, if someday I should ever, have another husband or something, Sam is always going to be the first love of my life.
Sure.
But in its proper place.
Yes, yes. So, avoiding people. I saw it in your book.
Mm-hmm.
Why avoid certain people that will take control over your life? Why do that?
Because you're in a vulnerable place. First, when you have a loss, I don't care who the loss is, whether it's your child or your family member or whatever, you're vulnerable. And so you'll wake up one day wondering how this person got control of your life. And so you have to make some decisions about what's right for you. And sometimes that's why solitude is such a good place. It says, Henri Nouwen, a Catholic priest, wrote in the book, The Way of the Heart, that solitude is the furnace of transformation. And I wrote a paper this week, and I said that solitude is the furnace of transformation. Silence is the fire in the furnace, and prayer are the coals that heat it up.
My Lord.
You make a choice.
What a picture.
When you let yourself experience time alone, because guess what? Sometimes you need alone. Couples, I'll give you a good example. Couple loses a child. It's very hard on their marriage. Because each one of those each one of those persons in the couple are going through the loss for themselves. They can't feel what the other one is feeling. And one of the problems is that when they try to, it keeps them from feeling what they're feeling. And they don't have to feel what that other person. A father who's lost a son, he has lost his image. There's what he created. A mother has lost her baby that she carried in her womb.
Yeah.
The daddy has lost his seed.
Yes.
And so they are both experiencing the loss of the same person, but from different perspectives, not right or wrong. And that's why they have to talk about it and share. And men don't need to hide their feelings and pretend like it's not happening, because guess what? It's going to come out some kind of way.
Yes. Well, our next segment, we're going to actually talk with husband and wife. I thought about this, and I said, Lord, I think I'm going to do like Oprah. I got an expert. I said, I'm gonna bring her into this one and be a part of it, because I think that there's a lot of help that you can give. And I, I want to thank you so much for sharing your life, sharing about your life, and how you have taken time to show forgiveness. Thank you, Lord. Yeah.
It's not for that person, that's for you. Forgiveness is not about the other person. Forgiveness frees me. Forgiveness cut the umbilical cord to the murderer. I'm not attached to the murderer. You know who I love? My mother.
Yeah.
See, I don't consider myself a survivor. I don't consider myself a co-victim. I consider myself the daughter of Juanita and Wade Henry.
Yes.
That's who I am. Yes, I am the daughter of a murder victim, but that was for one moment in time. For 23 years, I was the daughter of Juanita Suswell Henry. And today, I am the daughter of Juanita and Wade Henry. That's who I am. I'm not a co-victim because I'm not suffering under the weight of murder. If I'm redeemed and I'm released to be able to share with others, the scripture says this: God is the Father of compassion. He is the God of all comfort, who comforts us in our trials, that when we have been comforted of God, we may comfort others who are in any trouble with the same comfort whereby God has comforted us. That's why I know that what I provide is not my power, but God's power and God's peace and God's healing. He is the God that heals us.
Can you look at that camera? Last words or prayer or whatever you would like to share to the masses of folks that are listening.
I'll just say this: I heard a man take the Black National Anthem as a prayer. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, gone were the days when hope unborn had died. The point being that for survivors and murder victims and others who are experiencing the loss of a loved one, you have weary years, you have silent tears, but those days will be gone if you just trust and believe in one another, believe in God, and love one another fully as you remember the person who died and love them. That would be my prayer for you.
Reverend Wanda Jenkins. Reverend Wanda Jenkins, thank you so very much for your story, and we certainly thank you for the many books that you've had, and I forgot to bring them in order to show the camera, but can you give us the name of a few of the books before we leave?
Well, just the two that count for this particular session. Well, Just Us, Understanding and Overcoming Homicidal Loss and Grief. And then, but the most recent book came out in 2015, which is My Story, My Song, Daughter of a Murder Victim, Grief, Grace, and Growth After Homicidal Loss. I think that's the most important book that's out there. You can get it on Amazon.com. All I can tell you is that before the book, reach inside your own heart and touch it and let yourself feel what you feel, and don't apologize to anybody for what you feel.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. God bless.